My name is Joe Marinaccio, and I'm running for Gulf Shores City Council Place 4. I've lived in Gulf Shores for 5 years now with my wife, Ellen. I am a structural engineer. I have 40 years of experience in engineering as well as project management of government facilities. I'm also an active member of the Little Lagoon Preservation Society, where I'm part of the water quality testing team and an oyster gardener. I'm also part of the Stranded Sea Turtle Network. My platform consists of 4 major areas. Slowing the growth. We need to slow the growth so we can perform an adequate assessment of the infrastructure. To do so, we'll need to issue a moratorium to stop the new development, which will give the city an opportunity to study the infrastructure and how much additional growth it can handle. Also during this period of time, the new bridge over the Intercoastal Waterway will be complete, as well as the additional southbound traffic lane on Highway 59, and we'll be able to determine if those projects have helped reduce some of the traffic congestion we're currently experiencing around town. Also, I want to give the citizens a voice again and focus on projects that directly benefit them for the people that live here year-round. We also need to look at protecting the Little Lagoon. It has a very delicate ecosystem that needs to be protected. And finally, we need some better project management skills for our city. We've recently had 2 projects that were designed and came in significantly over budget. The new Justice Center was a new build where we paid $2 million in design fees. However, when that project went out for bid, it was significantly over budget, and the city decided rather than go back to that firm and have them redesign to the budget, they instead changed their project direction and chose to renovate a building and paid that firm an additional $1.5 million. That was $2 million of money down the drain for a design that we couldn't afford. We could have used that money in a lot of other areas around the city if we had better skills at doing construction cost estimating. And finally, the other project was the pedestrian bridge over the water. That bridge came in significantly over budget as well and had to be stripped of many of its features in order to get it within budget. Those 4 items are what I plan to work on during my term. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in civil engineering. I'm also a licensed professional engineer in 4 states. I've also been certified as a construction manager by the Construction Management Association of America, as well as a design build professional. As an engineer, I'm a problem solver and very detail oriented. In engineering, you're taught to examine, gather all the facts, examine the problem, develop a solution, and then implement it. And that's how I tackle all problems. After I graduated from college, I worked 5 years in the private sector doing structural engineering design. I then later started a 31-year career with the U.S. General Service Administration, a federal agency, in the design and construction department, doing engineering design. I was also part of the disaster response team. As part of that team, after a major disaster, hurricanes, storms, floods, etc., I was going out to buildings, examining them, and making sure they were safe to occupy for the federal tenants. If they weren't safe to occupy, I would develop a repair plan and scheme to get those buildings back in service so the federal tenants could be housed again. I then moved more into a project management type of role. My first project was a new U.S. courthouse in Tampa, Florida. That courthouse was 450,000 gross square feet of space with a construction cost in today's dollars of about $100 million. I successfully managed that project from the start to the finish to occupancy. That project was completed on time and within budget. My next project after that was a new U.S. courthouse in Jacksonville, Florida. That project was about the same complexity as my prior project in Tampa, and that project was completed on time and actually under budget. I then moved into a leadership position where I managed a team of project managers. My team and I were responsible for delivering a $2 billion construction program over a 10-year period of time. In order to manage that program, I had to coordinate with Congress, federal judges, state and local officials to bring those projects to fruition. It required a lot of coordination to be able to build projects in other cities around the nation. I developed a strategy for all the projects and the timeline and schedule for how they would be implemented, as long as the budget allocation for each of those projects. My team and I finished those projects on time and in budget. I'm running to bring some fresh ideas and new energy to the City Council. We need leadership that listens and acts in the best interests of the full-time residents here. We need to focus on projects that impact those that live full-time in the city. Those projects can be as simple as adding sidewalks to neighborhood, better lighting, more parks and recreational activities, etc. Also, we need to do a better job of protecting the Little Lagoon ecosystem. We need to ensure that the channel remains open and is flushed regularly with the tides so that the ecosystem can be properly maintained. We also need to have a better handle on the oversight of the Baldwin County sewer system. That sewer system has been receiving numerous violations from the Alabama Department of Environmental Management over the years for improper operation. There is also a concern by the Little Lagoon Preservation Society that too many nutrients are being emitted in the wastewater that's processed at the plant. The Little Lagoon hasn't been able to get any data from the water that is emitted into the aquifers, and we need to change that, get them the information so we can ensure that the lagoon stays healthy. And finally, we need to have better engagement with the community. People are often telling me that when they go to city council meetings, they make a statement, ask a question, and they're simply given a thank you or we'll look into that, never to be heard from again. They feel like they're just being brushed off. I suggest that we actually follow up on questions. If their question is not answered during the city council meeting, it should be added to the agenda for the next meeting, and somebody should give a briefing on that question and answer the question to the satisfaction of that person. That will give everybody a feeling of transparency and that their question was actually researched and they weren't just given lip service and brushed off for asking a question. There's been an explosive amount of growth just in the last 5 years that I've been here. I've seen the traffic get significantly worse. And it's only going to get worse if things remain the way they are. Also, with the opening of the new airport, I'm very concerned that that's going to bring a lot more cars and traffic to the area, and we need to get a handle on that before things get out of control. Also, we have a new school opening up on the Beach Express, and there'll be a lot more cars up in that area that will already be putting more strain on that road that is already very congested. I think we need to have a comprehensive study done that looks at the traffic all around the city and proposes ways that we can get cars off the road. We may need to look into possibility of getting some sort of a shuttle system from the airport to the beach so that people don't have to rent cars and put more cars on the roads. We also need to maybe look at some sort of a shuttle system along the beach that stops at various locations along the beach so that people can travel between the various attractions on the beach without having to get in their cars and get on the roads. We also maybe need to look into additional bike paths and other alternate ways for people to get around the city. Also, I think that we need to develop a very good relationship with the Alabama Department of Transportation, since they have control over some of our major thoroughfares, and they have the actual control over it. So we may be able to work with them, help influence them to do the projects we need to do that will help alleviate some of the traffic concerns. Also, I think on the zoning side, we need to look into the zoning requirements in the city and see if there's a way that we can make new subdivisions have larger lot sizes so that we reduce the density of housing in these new developments. Too often you see a street cut out and then there's house upon house right down the road. We need to try to get that reduced and get more green space in there. So we should have the development of these new subdivisions have more green space, more common area to further reduce the density of housing. Also, we need to look at impact fees for these new developments and charge these developers some money that will be used for future infrastructure needs that these developers may cause problems to the current system and not have the taxpayers have to fund that for these new developments. Those are just some of the goals that I plan to work on if elected.